If you're learning to use another language with your family, you need to go on a language immersion vacation. If done well, these vacations can motivate even the most resistant learner to want to use the language and create a huge reward that your whole family is excited to work towards as you learn to use another language. But when is the best time to go in your language journey? Keep watching. Hey TalkBox.Mom fam, what's up? It's Adelaide. Last video, I shared how to create your own language immersion vacation with your family. That's where you purposefully go to another country to practice using the language. And this week, I'm revealing in detail how to decide when you should go on your language immersion vacation. I've been asked how much of the language should I know before I go? What are the benefits of going sooner than later? And what's the difference if you're preparing with TalkBox.Mom or not? I want you to be able to easily see when is the best time for your family to go in your language journey. I'll walk you through what a trip looks like at every stage of your language journey so you can best pick the time for your family to go based on the benefits that are most appealing to you. But before we get started, make sure you like this video if you want to see more videos like it. Liking my last video helped more people to see it too, so thank you so much. And if you love making your dream family life a reality as much as I love teaching about it, be sure to subscribe to my channel below. And of course, don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when my next video goes live. You don't want to miss it. Now let's jump into your language journey so you can decide the best time to go on your language immersion vacation. For our TalkBox.Mom families, your journey looks like this. You start at the snacks and kitchen box and you work your way through each of the 9 boxes as you continue to add the language to your life. Then you cycle back through your boxes again because you were smart and invested in a program that you use again and again over the years. You also most likely use your phrase book with your boxes, which I find super helpful when we're traveling as well. This might surprise you, but you could go on a language immersion vacation at any stage in this language journey. You do not have to reach a specific box to be able to practice using the language. Why? With TalkBox.Mom, you start talking in another language the same day you start and move far down the path of fluency to where the language is part of your everyday life. So when you go on a language immersion vacation, you will use the language as much as you can, no matter how much or how little that is. And in turn, you will keep practicing and improving. Traditional language programs have a mythical finish line when you'll be good enough to use the language. TalkBox.Mom does not. I developed TalkBox.Mom as I was traveling the world with my family. I wanted us to be able to talk now and use the language now because I was in another country and needed to be able to use it. Every program I found focused on one day being fluent so you could finally use the language. This doesn't cut it when you actually want or need to use a language. So we started to use the language as a family. As we practiced together, this allowed us to use the language in other situations outside of the home. For example, my son might say, "Can you please bring me a fork?" in another language, or he might yell from the bathroom in another language, "I need a towel." Then, when we're traveling, I can call down to housekeeping and ask, "Can you bring me a towel?" Do you see how those two phrases came together? We might be at a dinner and the waiter says to my son, "Do you need a fork?" Again, those same two phrases are coming together in a different way. With the various fluency approaches in each of our boxes, you'll experience a language explosion as you're able to naturally mix and match so many phrases to communicate now, not just later. As you build your language skills as a family, you're able to use more and more of the language as you travel or live abroad. Why is that? Remember, the language we use in our home is the foundation of language. As parents, we use our language in our home environment before our kids ever start school. Then when they learn, say, biology, they might not know all the terms in biology, but they're learning those terms through the language we used at home with them. And even if specific language has a more formal or academic way of speaking, the child also learns that through the language they learned at home. It's very powerful how we learn to use a language in our families. On the flip side, when you learn to speak a language academically or perhaps on a mission trip or professionally, it's harder to use the language in other situations because you lack the foundation of the language spoken in the home. So you're stuck in a silo where it's harder harder to cross over. That's why so many parents who have bachelor's degrees in a language go through our program as a family. They consistently say that they're using more of the language in 4 boxes than in 4 years of their degree. That's a significant time and cost difference. And besides seeing this in thousands of parents, I have personal experience getting stuck before I started TalkBox.Mom and wasting time and money and not knowing what I should do. So I'm so glad you're here instead of there. Now that we've talked about your language journey, let's get started with the different stages you could go on a language trip and the benefits. First, you can go on a language immersion vacation as you're starting. Does this sound wild? You might not know very much, maybe a few phrases. Is this a waste of a trip? Nope. This is an excellent way to build motivation and excitement. It's so fun to hear the phrases that you just started using as your family said by other native speakers, including children. This makes the language feel very real for your child. They make this connection that many people use this language, and in fact, it's very well the only language these people know. This need to communicate will make every phrase you've practiced extremely valuable because it's all your child has. You bet you'll be using as many as those first phrases as possible, even in creative ways. In Italy, we had only completed our 10 phrase practice sessions in challenge 1, 2, and 3 of the first box, the snacks and kitchen box, as well as our ice cream scoops phrases. On the very first day, we were able to order our gelato in Italian. That was one of the ways that we used our Italian twice a day. It's justified. It was for the language immersion experience, and my kids loved it. We were able to order off the menu because we already knew how to ask for food at home from challenge 1 and 2. And it's Italian. We know a lot of the Italian food names. Very easy to use those with our Italian phrases. I also surprised myself by saying a phrase, "We need the chair," in Italian. Surprised myself because I never learned this phrase. However, I practiced 2 phrases that made this creativity possible. First, we practiced the phrase, "We need to cross the street," from the phrase book while we were on our trip. In Naples, it's scary to cross the street. Motorcycles swerve between you even when you have the right to walk. If you stop walking, you will probably get hit. And we crossed the street so many times that this is a phrase we wanted to learn while we were there because we could use it so much. Second, from challenge 3, we learned to say, "Push in your chair." So when we were all getting seated at a table, an Italian man said something to me as he motioned to the chair. Out popped an Italian, "Oh, we need the chair." He smiled and said something like, "No problem," in Italian. Because of the phrases we were using, my brain used extraction to natively say the phrase. The necessity pushed it right out. A language immersion trip gets you thinking this way, and we were so excited to start using so many of the phrases that we just learned. We even worked on the second box while we were in Italy. And that's because every phrase became this lifeline and opened up a new opportunity. We wanted more and more and more, and we wish we had more. Of course, you will always think, "I wish I practiced more before we went," because you see the impact your practice sessions have, but you will not regret going, even if you have only practiced a few times. Your desire to use the language, your creativity as you talk, and this need to practice will grow and grow and grow. In fact, my 5-year-old is still asking for everything in Italian since this trip. Even if we're speaking another language, he's like, "Posso avere, per favore." He is so obsessed. I mean, ordering gelato twice a day in Italian changed everything for him. Next, you can go after a couple of boxes to see how much you're capable of and grow in your love of learning more. We did this when we went to France after completing our practice sessions in a couple of boxes. I have to admit, French was a scary language for me to start because of its stigma in the United States. It's for fancier people than I am, the intellectuals. I didn't think I could measure up, and then when we were using our French in France, I realized that I didn't have anything to be worried about. The French loved when we used their language. This might sound the opposite of stories you've heard of Americans using French in France. I find that most Americans have trouble for 2 reasons. Number 1, in American schools, French is often taught how it's written. And when you speak how French is written, you sound like a snob. A little ironic that you sound like the snob when you're labeling them as the snob. Number 2, most French learners are trying to build sentences in their heads with nouns and verbs and adjectives and retrieve the rules. So they speak really slow and stop a lot. This can be frustrating to someone in France because it's taking so long, so they switched to English. Because we used TalkBox.Mom, we didn't have any of those issues. We just communicated at the level we could, and we got smiles, and the native speakers were delighted to help us add new words to what we were already saying. This helped me feel comfortable in the idea of being someone who is using French. I also took all our box materials to France, and we practiced while we were there. We ended up practicing the drinks challenge in the drinks and dining box. I think this is a great challenge to complete when you travel because as we travel, we're constantly ordering drinks. After all, the first thing you're asked on the airplane is, what would you like to drink? And if you use TalkBox.Mom, especially if you're in the consistency crew, you know these phrases stick. So 6 months after going through this challenge, we were flying from Germany to Dallas, Texas. We connected in Paris, but I forgot that detail. When we took off from Paris, I said, Ich möchte bitte etwas Wasser. And the flight attendant said, no German. I was like, where am I? Oh, France. She's offended that a German would think that they could just speak German at her. Then I said, Je puis avoir de l'eau, s'il vous plaît? She immediately smiled and told me, of course, in French. She turned and swiftly got me water. And then in English, my 10-year-old said, I want to say it how you did, Mom. You should have seen her face. She was like, English speakers using German and French? Nolan had just been using Spanish, Italian, and German for a month in Europe as we went to Spain, Italy, and Germany. So for his confidence, I whispered the phrase to him, and then it all came back, and he confidently used the phrase too. The flight attendant was so happy that throughout the flight, she kept bringing us extra drinks and chocolates. We were her favorite customers. And we do not know a ton of French. Obviously, we can use more than someone who finished a year or 2 in high school, but we only went through a couple of boxes. So for us, although there is so much ahead of us, we could get by in many situations. And if you go through the bathroom box workouts, you'll be shocked at how much you're capable of, even though you were just practicing as you washed your hands a bajillion times a day. Okay, this next stage is juicy. It's going after you complete your practice sessions the first time through the playground and small talk box. At this stage, you're able to easily make friends in another language. Before, you could talk to people, but here, you're able to make some lasting friendships as you get to know them and they get to know you. After completing this box, we went to La Crucecita, Mexico, which is a town I mentioned in my last video. In this town, there are so many beaches to pick from every day. I love taking taxis to get to them because you don't have to park and they can come back and pick you up at a specific time, making it easier to get the kids to leave the beach. Well, we found a taxi driver who was in his early 20s and was such a genuine, fun guy. So we got his number and used him almost daily. One day we decided to go to San Agustin, which has a beautiful reef right off the shore. And he took us on the hour or so long drive. He didn't speak any English, and I sat up front and was talking to him about the village where he grew up. He was telling me about his family. I asked him who the girl was I saw him in town with the other day. He told me it was his girlfriend. When I asked him what she does, he said she was in school, and then I teased him so much for not knowing what she studies. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh my word, I'm speaking and thinking in Spanish. We've been talking for an hour. I haven't thought about conjugating verbs. I haven't needed to think of any grammar rules. I'm just using my Spanish and having a great time. This meant a lot to me. It felt like a big turning point because I aced Spanish in high school only to find out I couldn't speak Spanish. It felt like what didn't work was finally undone. I was no longer trapped in my head, worried that if I tried and messed up, I couldn't get an A. I was using Spanish with fluency, without anxiety, and he told me the next day what his girlfriend was studying at the university. We had a great friendship, and I hope he always has this perception of Americans. And then my kids also made friends with Mexican children at the beach and played all day with them. Going on a trip after this box is also great if you're doing any high adventure activities. The playground phrases are a must. You already know how to talk about going on zip lines, climbing ladders, jumping off edges, going over bridges, because you practice all those phrases on the playground. Now you can use them in a new context as you zip line hundreds of feet over a canyon or through fire. The next stage I'll cover is going on a language immersion vacation after you go through all your boxes the first time. This means completing 10 practice sessions per challenge in all 27 challenges. This is a big deal. It can be a goal you work towards so that you can book a trip. This can be so motivating for your family. And when you get there, it's time to celebrate all your hard work by using the language, enjoying the culture, and having fun together, seeing all the sights and eating all the food. If this feels far in the future to you, or you keep starting and stopping and not sure where to pick back up, you want to grab our new Power Practice Planner. I'm obsessed with this planner. It gives you the power to plan or report, the power to do a lot or a little, the power to hit it hard or take a break and pick it right back up. Plus, each planner takes you through all 9 boxes, completing 10 practice sessions in each challenge. It's like your best friend telling you to not go overboard or loading up on phrases and to move on to your next challenge instead of wondering if you should move forward or not. Plus, it gives you a rhythm to review so that all your phrases stay fresh for your trip. After you blast through your Power Practice Planner and make it on your language immersion vacation, you're going to be using so much of the language. You'll witness the impact your practice sessions have on your language skills. You'll be having these moments where you're using the language and you just look at your family and you're like, we did this together. We had this moment in Germany where a shop owner could not wrap his head around the idea that we were just on vacation in Germany, that none of us are Germans, but we use German at home in the United States, so when we're in Germany, we can just talk. This blew his mind that this is what Americans do, and it made everything feel so easy on our trip. As you're traveling, you'll be learning so much through the language as well. As you talk, people will think that you know how to say everything because everything is so fluid when you talk. So when you stop for a word or ask what it is, they'll fill it in for you quickly and you just keep talking. Just like if you forgot a word in English and your friend helps you to finish your thought. TalkBox.Mom gives you a strong foundation of the language so you can keep learning through the language like this. You're definitely hitting the high of an academic addiction at this stage. After your trip, you'll not only be done celebrating your huge accomplishment, but you'll have this fuel to loop back through your boxes 1 or 2 more times with your next Power Practice Planner. I'll link to the Power Practice Planner below so you can see if it will help you move forward in your language journey. Now, the last stage you can pick to go on a language immersion trip is on repeat forever. Using another language is part of your lifestyle now. It's what you do, and it looks so good on you. So why not keep going? When we're in Mexico, I'll often get asked what parts of Mexico I visited, and the locals will reply, "You've seen more of my country than I have." Of course we have. Using Spanish, enticing and rewarding our kids for continuing to use Spanish, not always an easy thing if you have resistant learners like I do, is part of our family life. And because we travel for free, just fees on points, we can go once to a couple of times a year. I made a video about this already, so I'll link to it below for you as well. Now, what if you're not using TalkBox.Mom to prepare for your language immersion vacation? Bottom line, you will not get as much out of your trip if you're using a traditional program or playing in an app to get a streak. These types of programs make it more and more stressful to talk because you didn't practice talking, and they deliver significantly slower progress because you're not using the language every day. So you just don't get as much out of your trip because you're not prepared to talk. As I started developing the approach for TalkBox.Mom, we were in Brazil, and boy, do I wish we had TalkBox.Mom. Immediately when I tried to talk, my brain went back to a word I saw in a book or in a flashcard. My recall was coming from a piece of paper because I practiced from a piece of paper. I could also not talk fluidly no matter how hard I studied. Why? Because I didn't practice talking. Learning grammar and vocabulary and playing in an app is not talking in a language. So of course, I was good at recognizing words or dissecting grammar. That's all I practiced. We just can't be surprised that we're not good at talking if we didn't spend our time talking. I noticed this from my amazing sister-in-law when we were getting ready for Italy. When we went to practice a phrase, she would start talking about the grammar of the phrase, and in my head I'm thinking, we need to practice using this phrase so we'll be ready to talk. But she had taken Italian classes and this is what she was trained to do. I get it. However, once we were in Italy, her mind was blown in the best possible way. She was using what we had practiced and it was fueling her to want to talk more. By the end of the trip, her and my brother were ecstatic to be using phrases, actually talking, and going on and on about how TalkBox.Mom is the best way to learn a language. You want your recall to come from the phrases you used and practice. This will help you talk when you need to talk. If you haven't started using another language with your family and you'd love to jump in and hear your family talking in minutes, go to TalkBox.Mom/free to get our free starter pack. You'll start off with an activity where you and your family are talking in and understanding another language in minutes. Seriously, minutes. I also cover approaches to make sure everyone is confident and feels safe, not scared, as you practice. The next week will help you to start using a few phrases from our phrase book for families every time you go out to the car. And the third week, you'll get a sneak peek into one of our challenges in our Signature Box program, and you'll start using some phrases as you eat. Just head over to TalkBox.Mom/free to get started. I hope you have a much better idea of when you want to go on a language immersion vacation to either motivate your family or celebrate your progress while adding more fuel to the fire. Let me know in the comments when you'd love to go on your language immersion vacation and what you'd like to learn about next in a video. I read every single comment. So until next time, I'm Adelaide from TalkBox.Mom, where you start talking in another language with your family from day one.